right, so last year, my wife and I found ourselves at the center of a budding community. Quite unexpectedly, actually. This was something we were doing inside of our own home with our own children, and when we began to share it, it was really for friends and family, people who already knew us and were already interested. But as this community developed, it really highlighted for me, along with kind of my parallel life in experience design, it really highlighted the connection between community building and design, and how when community is something that is prioritized right alongside the development and design of products or services or whatever it is that you do, we all have the opportunity to do a much better job of creating healthy, sustainable communities that can thrive, hopefully for the long term. Everyone seeks community. It's universal. Whether it's to find a place where you can belong, or whether it's to, if you're an organization, maybe it is to spread or market ideas or causes or products that you're trying to bring to market. But everybody seeks it out. And when they find it, it's often where they least expect it to be. And that's because community rarely thrives when it's community for community's sake. When community alone is the goal, it's very difficult to get something off the ground. Think about networking groups that you've been a part of, and when you put strangers into a room and tell them to do community, what you're likely to get is a lot of awkward silence or mundane conversations about the weather or something. It takes a really long time for people to connect when they're not there because of the connection in the first place. Intimacy must be earned. Intimacy and camaraderie have to be earned before they can be expected. People are wary of authentic communities, and rightfully so. We've all been harmed by promises of communities that have turned out to be false. So what I want to talk about today is some lessons that we've learned about community building that we kind of stumbled into as Dinovember took off and became something that people outside of the four walls of my home knew about and participated in. So, when my wife and I started Dinovember, community was not on our roadmap. We did not have a roadmap. This was very much a happy accident that this happened at all. My one-year-old son had some complications that were by no means life-threatening, but meant that he was up all night, every night, in discomfort. He would wake up maybe 4 times, 5 times a night. He'd be up for an hour and a half. When this was going on, you can imagine if you've ever been in a situation where you've missed sleep for a long period of time. For us, it was about 2.5 years. You know what this can do to you. It turns you into a zombie. You start losing your keys, you start forgetting appointments and dates, you start losing the thread in conversation. And this was hard for us, but it was affecting our kids too. There they are, asleep on the floor in various positions. But they were bored, they were cooped up all day, every day. Their parents were, zombies. We were off drooling in a corner somewhere, trying to get sleep wherever we could find it. And we came to the point where we saw this happening, and my wife and I, we realized we wanted to do something with what little energy we did have to reconnect with our kids. So, one night, while Susan and I were, my wife is Susan, while Susan and I were cleaning up after putting the kids to bed, she came across some plastic dinosaurs that were just lying around. Most of them were toys that belonged to her and her brother when they were kids. And so they had a little bit of a nostalgia factor for her. Well, we took them and just on a whim, we set them up in the bathroom sink with toothbrushes and toothpaste as if they were maybe trying to learn how to use them. And we went to bed without really thinking any more about it. It was just something to make the kids smile. But the next morning, our daughters burst into our room and jumped into our bed and shouted, "Mom and Dad, you've got to come see this. The dinosaurs came to life last night and we caught them brushing their teeth." And so after the girls pulled us into the bathroom and we woke up enough to figure out what was going on, we remembered the toys. And at first glance, the dinosaurs looked to be exactly where Susan and I left them. They were standing in the same positions, they were frozen in the same places. But when we looked closer and we saw our kids' wide-eyed expressions, we realized that, in fact, they were right. The dinosaurs had come to life, and we knew that they would have to do it again. And they did. It started off innocently enough. The day after the bathroom sink, they got into the kitchen and tore open a box of cereal. They cracked eggs all over the kitchen floor, scavenging for eggs just like in the prehistoric jungle. And then, unlike the prehistoric jungle, they used those eggs to attempt to bake cookies. After the dinosaurs' hunger was satisfied, for the moment at least, they got into a little bit of role-playing, which this is just one example of. And things only escalated from there. This continued for the rest of the month, and then on December 1st, the kids woke up to a clean, orderly home, as orderly as our home gets. No broken dishes, no splattered food. The dinosaurs were back on the shelf, and Dinovember had come to an end. When November rolled around the next year, our kids were daily asking us, are the dinosaurs going to be up to their old tricks again? Are they coming back? They've been dormant all this time. When are they going to come back? And we told them we didn't know. Susan and I really had not given much thought to whether or not Dinovember was going to be a recurring thing. But in the end, we were powerless against the coming invasion. This time around, the dinosaurs made bigger messes than ever. It's almost as if they knew that my eldest daughter, who was 6 years old at the time, was starting to grow skeptical of the whole thing. And so they pulled out all the stops. If this looks a little bit extreme to you, don't worry. We were able to cover it up with a chair. You could never even know that the dinosaurs were ever there. Our friends and family were starting to be a lot more interested in what the dinosaurs were up to as well. They would hear our kids talking about it, and they would be asking us, what is going on in your house? So we wanted a way to share this with them. And this is really where the first seeds of community were planted, just with friends and family, people that we already knew, who already loved us, who already knew us and cared about the things that we did. So we created a Facebook page where we could put our dinosaur photos up, where anybody who wanted to see them could come and join and take a look at them or share their own. I also wrote up a quick kind of Dinovember primer called Welcome to Dinovember and posted this on Medium, which is such a great platform if any of you have not yet used it. And this was really just to give people a way to, if they weren't familiar with what we were doing, they could read this and hopefully they would understand, get the gist of it. If you fast forward about 3 days, while Susan and I were busy dealing with living room graffiti and Play-Doh fights and frozen dinosaurs, something strange was happening. Stranger maybe even than plastic dinosaurs coming to life and messing up my house. In just over 24 hours, Welcome to Dinovember was read and shared over 2 million times. It was syndicated by news sites like the Huffington Post, the Wall Street Journal, Metro UK, and more than 250,000 people liked the Dinovember Facebook page. Without us really doing anything to bring this on, community had found us. And we were just amazed at the response. And of course, we had our skeptics. Here's an article someone wrote about Dinovember, suspecting that it was all a clever marketing ploy by some toy company. My favorite line is, "What really makes me critical about Dinovember is the amount of effort put into this by the so-called parents." And it wasn't a marketing ploy, of course, but a lot of people were telling us to cash in, sell t-shirts, sell posters or calendars or prints or whatever, agree to those corporate social media tie-ins that were beginning to trickle in. And this was when the Dinovember community was like 2-3 days old. Steve Jobs used to say, apocryphally at least, I don't know if he actually said this, but he used to say that everything an organization does is either a credit or a debit to its brand. Every action that they take either adds something or takes something away. Asking our community for their money at this point felt like it would really have been a serious debit. These people didn't sign up to be pitched to or sold to. Many for-profit endeavors get this wrong, I think. They go right for the kill. They go for the conversion before the community has the kind of self-sustaining strength to support that. Even now, as Susan and I begin to promote our book, What the Dinosaurs Did Last Night, we feel that sense of responsibility every time we hit post. We really have to check ourselves and make sure that this is something that we want to say, because it's really not all about us. Just a few stats to give you some context. Today, the Dinovember community has grown to reach over 50 countries. Our primary hub is still Facebook, where the page has about 268,000 likes. We've received, and this is my favorite part, we've received over 6,000 messages and comments, including photos from dinosaur invasions that have taken place in Oslo, Helsinki, Berlin, Sydney, London, and all over. The interactions that we've had with these people and the interactions that we've watched them have with each other have been so inspiring. It's just been incredible to see the unexpected ways that the Dinovember community has developed. Community makes our experiences meaningful by providing context. Varied perspectives come together to influence and inform each other so that we each have the opportunity to understand our shared situation better. Dan Harmon is the creator of the TV show Community, which obviously makes him an expert on this topic. He says it this way: as humans, reality for us is largely based on other people's perceptions. If there are 20 bodies in your crawl space, but you haven't been caught yet, you tell yourself you're still the birthday clown, and that's how you keep doing it. Okay, maybe that's a terrible example. The positive way of looking at this, though, is that the presence of other people with their perspectives, their wit, and the joys and hurts that they've lived through, which now inform their reactions, all of these things frame our experiences differently. Without them, all we're left with is our own subjective, unreliable, and slow-changing selves. David Foster Wallace says this: there's no experience you've had that you are not the absolute center of. The world as you experience it is there in front of you and behind you on your TV and your monitor. Other people's thoughts and feelings have to be communicated somehow because your own are so immediate, urgent, and real. When we include others in our experiences, the movie of our lives becomes less a star vehicle and more of an ensemble production. Everybody brings something together and the whole is elevated. Experiences are better in community. That's why communities rarely thrive as simply a means for community, or more cynically, as a means to market products. Instead, authentic community springs up, often unexpectedly, from meaningful shared experiences. That doesn't mean that communities don't require cultivation. Of course they do. If you want to build a community, and community is built on meaningful shared experiences, what do you think it's your job to do? Community is a living testament to meaningful experiences. So what makes an experience meaningful? For us, it can be very simple. And for us, it was a box of plastic dinosaurs and a desire to ignite our kids' imagination. It was that idea that drew like-minded people from around the world. Ideas are powerful. And when it comes to community, they're vital. The idea that we should value our children's imaginations enough to spend an entire month actively encouraging them to play and to believe in something fantastical is what gave Dinovember its meaning, beyond the funny pictures and the likable dinosaurs. That's what inspired people to participate. What's the reason behind what you're doing? Why are you building products or services that you're building? And why should anybody on the outside care? If you are able to tell your story in a way that inspires people, they'll want to join you. And if you can't, then you'll always feel like you're pushing your boulder uphill. Designing meaningful experiences also requires a little letting go. For an experience to mean something to somebody, they need to have some skin in the game. They need to have some ownership. One of the first things we did after Welcome to Dinovember started getting the kind of exposure that it was getting is that we invited the world to participate. Don't just wait for us to post our dinosaur photos. Get out your own dinosaurs and do this in your own home. Make your kids believe. Or mess with your coworkers. That's also a fun thing. I've been talking about Dinovember as kind of a case study, but let me give you another example. Lorraine Lutz is an artist in Cape Town who challenged herself to paint a new piece every single day of the year. The pieces are tiny, as you can see in the picture. They're about the size of a quarter, and they recreate their subjects in incredible detail. Here's what she has to say about letting go as part of her creative process for the sake of community.
One of the biggest decisions I've had to make was what to paint, and in terms of the subject matter. A lot of people were saying, I can't let people influence me, and I can't let people make suggestions, and that's not art. But I always wanted it to be kind of an interactive thing, and I think that's what people liked about it. They liked that realized in a painting, and I think it just became much less self-involved, and it became more about the process of interacting with someone and finding out what really would capture them and what really would mean something to them, and it just became more of a labor of love.
This letting go is hard, and we think, this is my experience. This is something that I created, something that reflects on me. And we don't want other people to taint that experience by adding their own thing to it or changing it in some way. We don't want them to taint the purity of it as we conceived of it. You might initiate an experience, but once others begin to participate, they really do take on a life of their own. Sarah Judd Welch, who's part of Loyal, said, the funny thing is that these Fortune 100 companies think they're building community for themselves, for their own bottom line. But at the end of the day, communities own themselves. It might be helpful to define a little bit about what we're talking about when we talk about ownership. We're not talking about leadership. I'm not advocating that you should hand over the reins to your community, although in some situations that might be exactly what you should do. When I say that members of a community should have some ownership over these shared experiences, I mean this. Each member should be able to take some part of the community experience and leave some part of themselves behind. That's a bit esoteric, I think, so let me give you an example from Dinovember. Danny is a young boy who lives with his family in London. That's not his real name, but this is a real story. He attends a therapy group for children who've been diagnosed on the autism spectrum. One of the biggest challenges that Danny faces is what's called social imagination. He can perfectly reenact social situations, but he has a lot of difficulty imagining new ones or understanding them completely. Danny's mom has been looking for tools to help her son develop these skills, and she saw Dinovember. And when she showed the photos to Danny, she helped him to imagine what the dinosaurs might be thinking or feeling, or how they were interacting based on their expressions and their actions. So she ended up doing Dinovember in her own home with Danny's toys. And when Danny responded to this, she told his therapy group about it, and they decided to make it part of their program to help other children with social imagination. She took what we had done with our kids and she made it hers in a way that we never would have thought of or imagined. She used toys that Danny already liked and taught him something that it really just never would have occurred to us. It's Dinovember, but it's Danny's. So we've been talking about designing meaningful experiences and the importance of a central idea or story. We've also talked about the importance of sharing ownership with the community. There are so many other factors to consider, but I want to take the rest of the time to focus on one that is very near and dear to my own heart, and that is fun. When somebody shares a Dinovember photo, they do it because it made them laugh. There's no, science behind that. That's That's what they do. People want to have fun, and the thing about fun is that it's so much easier to have fun when there are other people around you that are having fun too. Fun is contagious, but more importantly, it practically demands to be spread. What's the first thing that you do when you find something that makes you laugh? You share it. Nobody laughs at something and then hides it away for themselves. So with Dinovember, fun played kind of a dual role. It was both the idea, part of it anyway, and it was the experience. We wanted people to have fun and to spark their imaginations so that they'd understand the value of doing this for their kids or something similar and with their communities. But even when the idea behind your experiences are more serious, fun can still be appropriate and valuable. You all recognize what's happening in this picture. You're all familiar with the Ice Bucket Challenge. I'm sure you also know that it was a huge success. As of September, I believe, the ALS Foundation, or the ALS Association, had raised over $111 million through the Ice Bucket Challenge. I mean, that's incredible. And the reason that the Ice Bucket Challenge was so successful is because it was fun. ALS is obviously a serious disease, but people liked watching videos of their friends and family dousing themselves with ice water. They liked being able to take videos of themselves and feel like they were part of something bigger. Because it was fun, it was an enormous success. But fun is fleeting, and something that makes you laugh today might not make you laugh tomorrow. Something that's a big hit with your community today might fall flat tomorrow. Communities are made of people, and people's needs, desires, and tastes are never static. As soon as your community is delighted, it's time to move that experience forward. The bottom line is this: community building is experience design. Because whether your experiences are built around a social cause, or applications, or designer genes, or pictures of dinosaurs, they'll mean much more in community. Thank you.